It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Yeah, welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast as we follow the Australian property market together, keeping or trying to keep on top of what is going on and trying to keep one step ahead. Is that almost impossible in 2026? I suggest it is. And with changes in the federal budget this week, are you bouncing off this coming weekend to look at property? And if you are a first home buyer, are you doing that with more enthusiasm? We would love to hear from you. Don't forget about our voice message recorder. That is in the link below. Or, of course, you can email us, as so many people do, to myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Yes, another weekend. It is approaching with inspections. The auctions are taking place, open homes, and that drive if you are looking to find the right property. Hey, do us a favour too, on top of all of that. If you enjoy the podcast, leave us a review on Spotify or Apple and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us connect with more people just like you who are interested or even crazy about chasing real estate. We are independent media playing with the larger online organisations, and our podcast continues to grow because of the audience behind it, people just like you, and thank you for doing that. Talking of emails, Brendan in Cairns, thank you for sending us a note. You are a long-time listener, you say. Every morning you listen with your brekkie. Yesterday, you say that your daughter came down for breakfast. We were playing on your phone, and your 9-year-old daughter said, "Hey, Dad, you're always listening to that real estate channel. Why?" I reminded her, you say, that power is knowledge and that her father knows a lot more about property these days. You are looking, you say, at buying before Christmas, and you say thank you for being a constant source of information. You are welcome, Brendan, and so good that you're going to be in that property, fingers crossed, before Christmas. Well, it is a Friday, May the 15th. Let's take you right now to Brisbane and catch up with Jade Fitzgerald, the owner of Ideal Buyers Agency. That was an interesting email there that came through from Brendan. I can sort of well imagine, a 9-year-old saying, "Yeah, what's going on?"
Yeah, totally. Good morning, Craig. And yeah, I'm imagining also that she's probably looking for a Barbie-esque style McMansion, and what they end up going out and looking at might be vastly different from that. I spend a lot of time with families and love when the kids come along and we start choosing their bedrooms and things like that already. It's always good fun. But yes, I'm sure she's always wondering, what are they actually talking about?
Yeah, it just sort of goes over the head. But you actually raise a really good point, and that is when a child goes into a property to buy, because the rental might be slightly better than the property that they're buying, a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, they'll be thinking, hang on, we're sort of downgrading here.
There can be a little bit of that, yes. And a lot of what we do is assisting the mums and dads while we're out looking at property. Lots of the time, kids get a bit nervous when they're shopping around for house shopping as well, obviously. And they worry about school changing and, whether they'll still have the same friends and all those sorts of things. So while we're out and about, we actually do try and spend a bit of time with the kids and take them through different rooms and get them a bit excited. The hard thing is then is if we put an offer in and we're not successful, and then we've got to explain, okay, well, that one wasn't for us, but we're moving on to our next one.
I know that she's probably listening with a lot of interest because we're talking about her, and that always shifts the way that somebody will listen. Now, Brisbane continues to outperform most Australian capital cities, even as higher interest rates and global uncertainty starts affecting confidence. Now, I'm interested in your thoughts here. Dwelling values still rose strongly through April, although the pace of growth is beginning to moderate. This is for Brisbane. Is that the case that you're finding where you are?
Yeah, look, there definitely has been a bit of a shift in the market. The dwelling values have still risen 17.3% annually into early 2026. So we're still seeing a strong performance and one of the stronger performance across the East Coast capitals. But what we are starting to see is that the pace of it has just started to slow down a bit. The pricing itself is just sort of, I think, coming in a bit more in line with the rest of the market, where we're not seeing this crazy urgency to purchase. Whereas before, you'd be lucky to have a real estate agent return your phone call. I'm now receiving upwards of sort of 10, 15 phone calls a day from agents wanting us to come along to their opens. So what we're just seeing is a bit of a softening in the market of how many people are out and inspecting, but the pricing itself is still seeming to track with its growth as been performing throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, so if you look at Brisbane for that aggressive competition, that is waning, and the fear of missing out, that buying mentality, it is dissipating somewhat. Brisbane is, as you say, showing those early signs of it's really a rebalancing of the market. Buyers agents are especially reporting fewer offers per property, longer, as you say, selling campaigns, and more realistic negotiations between buyers and sellers. This is all great stuff, especially for first home buyers. Last week we had the federal budget sort of clamping down on investors. This whole thing about first home buyers in with a little bit more of a grin up against those investors.
Oh, look, I think everyone's got a differing opinion on sort of what came down from the budget. My investors were nervous. Do they hold? Do they buy now? Do they wait and see what happens? It's an interesting one when you're buying property and you're looking at it as being an asset, and, you know, tax breaks and all of those sorts of things. They're a wonderful addition from what is an asset that's going to grow in value over time anyway, but it shouldn't be, you know, the overall driver of what you're doing with your wealth creation and growing wealth into the future. My thing with the budget more than anything was, yes, there is a bit of talk there for the first home buyers, but the reality is that we started to see a really amazing entry into the market, which was predominantly single women who are professionals working in the Sydney and Melbourne sort of platforms, and they can't afford to buy where they live. They were doing what we were calling rent vesting. And unfortunately, I think there's no discussion or look at those sorts of people and buyers and first home buyers into the market. There is this sort of constant thing, I think, when people talk about first home buyers, they have this picture of the nuclear family where we've got, you know, mum and dad and a kid, or there is no discussion about the single people out there that are still wanting to get their foot on the property ladder and still build wealth for themselves. And through that wealth creation, we're able to buy in a more regional area and be able to rent that out. So I think that the market shift that we're going to see there is, unfortunately, they're the ones that are going to be hit with it the hardest. So it will be an interesting market that we're looking at now.
We are talking to Jade. She is in Brisbane this morning as we start to wind down our week. Look forward to the weekend, and we'll have more after this.
Every morning from 6 a.m, we bring you the latest real estate news with diverse perspectives from leading industry experts. Have you missed one of our episodes? Whatever you are looking for, you'll find it right here.
Yeah, it is a Real Estate Friday. Nice to have your company. Jade from Queensland is with us. Buyers agents in Brisbane, Jade, they are increasingly warning clients not to confuse a slowing market with a falling market. Yes, many say that good quality homes in tightly held suburbs are still attracting strong competition, particularly in affordable and middle-priced market brackets where demand remains extremely strong. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, 100%. And there's still less houses hitting the market than there are buyers out there searching for them, especially in the PPR market. We're still seeing really strong interest and growth in families searching. And yes, the buyer's agent space, it's an interesting one. We've got more and more players in the market as well, which is always fun. And it's interesting when you're out in the market now and you sort of tend to see families walking through with their buyer's agents, which is always fun and interesting as well.
And we talk about, Brisbane being a little bit more moderate. One of the things about the Brisbane market is that whole tightly held aspect, a lack of stock, which is still pumping the market. And I think people have got to realise that there's two things that can be happening at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. And that doesn't change anything on sort of what's happening in those suburbs and what the value of those suburbs are. It is a constant conversation that we're constantly having with clients and sort of talking through those things, and where they see the value and what the actual market value is, it changes on a constant basis.
Well, we've got June not that far away. What are the sort of things that you would like to see happening in your market there in Brisbane? And I'm talking about especially probably young first home buyers trying to get into the market. How do you think the rest of our year is going to play out? I know that's a hard one to call because we've got all this global stuff happening with Iran. But yeah, how do you think, you've been in that market long enough, that that's going to go?
We're going to have a couple of weeks of uncertainty, and then what you don't know, right? And I think people forget, for the new players that are coming into the market, and let's say they get their pre-approval next week, they don't know any different. They don't know what the market was like last week. They don't know what the market was like last year. And so I think when you're looking at first home buyers, yes, there's obviously a lot of media beat up and it can be a bit doom and gloomy. But when you really look at it, if they've gone ahead and got their pre-approval and they're able to go out there and the banks have said, yes, you can borrow this money and yes, we believe you can pay it back, then the next step is then for them just deciding on what that looks like for them in the future as to schools, workability, all of those sorts of things. I think first home buyers tend to unfortunately get a little bit tricked up, is where they want to have an investment property and their first home and it's got to tick all the boxes. And I think sometimes you just got to remember that your first home isn't going to be your last home. Your first home is the one that's going to get you in on the property ladder. And then from there, your wealth creation continues to grow. And you'll be able to move into your next property from that based on good buying. And as long as it's ticking off the boxes for you and it's in a good suburb, you've got infrastructure around you. Most of these areas are pretty tightly held for families anyway. And there's always that limited supply within the Brisbane market. You're going to be doing well with your property. So I think it's just having the confidence. It's still a really scary thing to be spending so much money. It's also really scary not to really know what's happening with contracts and all of those sorts of things, but it's an exciting time regardless. I think over the next couple of weeks, we'll see the market settle down a little bit more. We've got some great stock on the market. We've actually seen more houses hit the market this week than we have in the last month.
Jade Fitzgerald, you have got plenty of enthusiasm there in Brisbane. We'll wrap it up there on our Friday morning. Enjoy the weekend coming up. Enjoy showing your clients property. And thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast.
Thanks a lot and happy shopping, everyone.
Listen to expert perspectives with exclusive real estate conversations, and supercharge your knowledge base with us.
There's going to be a limited amount of new homes built. If anything, you're going to probably see an explosion in that space from investors and potentially prices increasing on new homes, which really doesn't address the whole issue of capital gains, which is to try and make homes more affordable.
Some say that the CGT changes may reduce appetite for investment properties over time. How do you read that picture?
Yeah, look, I think no doubt that it will bring into question again the viability of property as an ongoing asset class, so, is there a better option other than property? But I think the tax increase, certainly on trust to 30%, I think is still reasonably within the framework of making a reasonable decision on an investment property. And I think if an established property still makes sense, the small tax increase on the trust, I don't think will change that too much. If it's a good investment, people will continue to buy it.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.